Hey, I want to thank our sponsors, Micky Finn's MPD Electric Co-op, Carolina Bank, Pepsi of Florence. I want to always thank our sponsors. I feel like a NASCAR driver, but, it is what it is, and none of this is possible without our dedicated and committed sponsors. There's a difference in having an official responsibility and being a blowhard. I'm real good at being a blowhard. I don't like official responsibilities, but we've decided in the course of this podcast that when we have an opportunity to engage someone of the officialdom, we take advantage of that because, once again, what they say has to be seriously considered. What I say can go in one ear and out the other. But for entertainment purposes only is what No Stoplights has always been about. But we had an opportunity to sit down with Drew McKissick, SCGOP chairman and co-chair of the national party. I'm offering up a blowhard's perspective, and he's willing to allow that and give some credible official responses about the problem. It's not a problem. I guess it's a dilemma that the GOP finds itself in. You got, kind of a division and then a reconciliation that will have to happen at some point in time during the 2024 election. We do that, then we go into kind of a strategy session about, politics being about math. How do you get from here to there? 270 is the magic number in Republican presidential politics. But then you've got state House races and Senate races and county council and mayoral races that matter a lot to a lot of people. And it's just kind of I don't know. It's where blowhard meets the officialdom. And that will be this edition of No Stoplights. Drew McKissick, SCGOP chairman and co-chair of the National Party, is with us. I'm going to ask if required, Drew, could you stay a little longer if we have to take a break and pay some bills? Because I think we're going to have somewhat of an extended and very serious conversation about the party that you are in charge of, not just in South Carolina, but I have a hand in at the national level. So can I get advance permission to keep you a little longer than we normally do?
Well, absolutely, especially since you come down on the right side of the Van Halen.
There you go. See that? So it's unanimous. David Lee Roth was a better front man than Sammy Hagar. So Drew, I want to go to something, and this is, I'm going back to my political days. When I ran for office at the county level and then the state level, one of my strengths was backslapping. I was pretty good at that. The thing that I struggled with was understanding policy. In other words, when voters asked me where I stood on this or that or the other, I had to understand and have developed some sort of seriousness about, the policy implications. Where do I go from? In other words, if the party thinks if the agenda or the platform of the party says X, am I fully on board with that, or do I differentiate just a touch? I believe that this election that you're going to have a big part in is less about policy and more about strategy. People are not as interested in the policy as they are, how do we win? I think COVID shook us to our core, and we kind of sort of feel like we got caught with our pants down a bit. We don't like it. I don't like it any more today than I did then, but I've accepted that there's a new strategy moving forward. So am I right to say this election may be less about policy, despite what we may want to be the case, and more about strategy? How do I get this many votes in Arizona, this many in Nevada, this many in Pennsylvania, this many in Georgia?
Absolutely. I don't disagree with you at all. Look, we all want to have our cake and eat it too. And look, we come together in political parties to form a consensus about, at the core, what are we most in agreement about? Okay, this is what we want to get done. But at the end of the day, you have to win in order to enact policy. Losers don't make policy. And that's something we've learned the hard way in some places. And as you point out, we just went through COVID, everything that liberals, Democrats work to do to us and supposedly for us all around the country. And folks are looking at that and going, well, we definitely don't want that again. That's not the kind of attitude that we want in government. As Ronald Reagan, succinctly put it years ago, personnel is policy. The type of people you hire is the type of policies that you're going to have. We can get caught up on how many angels can dance on the head of a pin, in terms of the fineries of, our conservative philosophy, which will disagree from person to person. But if we want to be too purist about things and not focusing enough on just the raw mechanics of winning an election to get our guys and gals in there, then we're going to be in a bad way. And I think you're right. A lot of folks are looking around wanting to know, who do we believe can win? Who's going to be able to, communicate a message that's going to resonate with people, that's going to get them to the polls so that we can win.
So, Drew, if that's the truth, what is your responsibility? What is the party apparatus's responsibility to address redefining or making our strategy better? I'll give you an example. I don't think there's anybody with an R beside their name that can win in Pennsylvania if they go into Election Day down 300,000 or 400,000 votes. I don't give a damn if it's Trump, DeSantis, Ronald Reagan. It doesn't matter to me who it is. If we don't address, that voting season deficit that we've had to deal with in the past few cycles. So we know the issue. How do we strategically address the issue?
Well, interesting you mentioned Pennsylvania, because an hour ago I did an interview with a radio station in Philadelphia, and Biden is there for the 18th time this week since he became president. There's a reason why he's going to Pennsylvania this many times, because, his numbers are like 38% in Pennsylvania. People are being bit by what they're doing, and, in terms of the economy, especially, and you go on down the list of other things. So they're worried about Pennsylvania. We have to be worried about it in terms of picking it up, and that goes back to some of those things that you just mentioned, the raw mechanics of actually getting out the vote. And, that is the Republican Party's domain. So when you throw these terms around a lot, and for a lot of folks listening on the radio, sometimes we'll get upset at, quote, the Republican Party. And, well, what are you talking about when you say that? Is that, well, Mitch McConnell did so-and-so? Okay, well, that's not the party. That's Mitch McConnell or this elected official or whatever it may be. You've got the state party, the county parties, the Republican National Committee, the House Committee, the Senatorial Committee, none of which, by the way, generally answer to one another, and all of which have different roles, okay? Our role, the Republican Party's role, the actual Republican Committee's role, County Committee, State Committee, Republican National Committee, is to build the infrastructure, the political mechanics that are necessary to get out the generic Republican vote that will then benefit every Republican on the ballot that we nominate. Nobody else is equipped legally and in a lot of other ways to do that job as much as the party is, the party committees. So it's kind of like, when I first got elected to this job as state party chairman back in 2017, one of the things that I, just made a goal of, and wrote this down among some other things, is, not to be in a position to, 5 years from now, have someone come to me and ask me why I didn't do somebody else's job. They're going to want to know why I didn't do my job. So what is my job? Define that. I got to, number one, I have to help put out a message that resonates with people, that will bring people to the polls for our candidates, our party. Number two, I've got to put together that infrastructure, identify the people, the personnel, the volunteers, the candidates, get them trained, et cetera. And then number three, I got to raise the money to make number one and number two possible. That's it. That is the party's job. The messaging relies on the candidates for a lot of reasons. And one, each candidate does have their own message and, communicated in many places in a unique way. But, also beyond just the having their own message itself, campaigns are uniquely positioned legally to communicate the message cheaper than the party. So, as a former candidate, a candidate gets what's known as the lowest, unit rate in advertising. A candidate can put an ad on TV, I think, about 40% cheaper than the party can. So when it comes to using your dollars wisely in a campaign, the candidates are better positioned to get their message out. The parties are better positioned legally to get the vote out. And that's where we have to focus.
And you don't show favorite over one candidate or another. But what do you do when someone like, and I'll use this as an example, you and I both know that Tim Scott's notoriety is good for the party. Vivek Ramaswamy is good for the party. How do you address knowing clearly and succinctly, hey, this guy really expands our horizon. He makes us a more marketable product, but it's not my job, kind of put him on a pedestal at the expense of another candidate.
Well, look, and you're going to have people, on one side or the other that will want you to or want you not to do exactly what you just described. And you have to, not listen to those people because you have to understand it's not your job. You've got to focus on the things that I just described. The campaigns, and I would say especially presidential campaigns. I've been through a number of them, the primaries that we have here, in South Carolina. First one that I went through was in '88. Okay. First one that we ever had here in South Carolina was 1980. And they're sort of like, tornadoes that come through a trailer park. It cause a lot of devastation, and then they're gone. They get a lot of people tossed up in the air and mad at one another about who they support and who they don't support, but then they are gone, and we still have to live here, as it were, in the wreckage. If we let it cause too much wreckage, if we let, the campaigns get us mad at one another about who we did or didn't support, because we've still got to work together to elect the sheriff, county council members, school board members, and all that other happy stuff. So we have to be careful not to let the campaigns get us divided from one another, because at the end of the day, we've got to come back together and do the job of turning out the vote.
And you would agree that right now one of our big issues, and this is where I really want to delve into, right now one of our big issues, and we've had about a week's worth of radio, and this has been a pretty consistent topic as we've discussed this. And I think we touched on it last week, but there's an element in our party that will vote for one man and only one man. There's an element in our party that will not vote for that man under any circumstance or condition. And I've tried to convince others, and you do this better than I. Look, we're not enemies. We're not mortal foes. The DeSantis voter has a lot more in common with the Trump voter. The Haley voter has a lot more in common with the Ramaswamy voter than they do the Biden voter or the Biden administration or the Biden agenda.
Absolutely.
So how do we? I mean, in other words, it's up to us. You just said it. The political party doesn't belong to Drew McKissick. It doesn't belong to Donald Trump. It belongs to all of us who call ourselves Republicans. But don't you have somewhat of a responsibility and an obligation to initiate that conversation to try and not heal that divide, but help us reconcile after the primary that ultimately we're here to beat Democrats?
Yeah, well, so one of the things that you'll see the party do in many occasions, many places around the country, especially states that have late primaries. Some states out there that have primaries in September, for God's sakes, which I think is insane. Ours is in June for our regular statewide offices. But our national convention, when it comes to the presidential campaign and so forth, will be in July of next year. It does fall on the party, locally for local races, state level, and the national level, to try to put the thing back together after the primaries are over, to put it, succinctly. Because again, division is not the pathway to success. Good politics is about addition and multiplication, not division and subtraction. Yes, there are a lot of folks who will vote for one candidate only, a lot of folks who won't vote for a particular candidate. In this race and in many other races. But as you point out, at the end of the day, they have infinitely more in common with one another than any of our candidates and anything the Democrats would ever put up. And then so our job at that point is to put the focus on the Democrats. This is what they want to do. The only way you stop them from doing what they want to do is you stop them from getting in office. And that is not, by the way, staying home. I doubt any of those people you just described are going to vote for the Democrats. The question is, do they turn back out and vote? And you've got to emphasize to them how important it is that they turn out and vote, because the one thing that you're basically guaranteed in life is if you don't participate in the political process, you are guaranteed not to like the result. And that's the message we have to get out.
Very well explained. Can you hang around a few more moments? I want to take a break, pay some bills,
Absolutely.
But I want to walk you through a hypothetical scenario and get your high degree of expertise that our listeners very seldom get on this feeble. I want to. We're in a smoke-filled room somewhere. We're making the plan to win the presidency. I'm the antagonist. You're the official. I'm the guy that said, Drew, I'll tell you what we need to do, man. We need to do, don't pay attention to anybody. This is what we need to do. So I've done the math. And Trump was at 232 in the Electoral College. With the new census, he would be at 235. We've had a shift of votes here and there. So Trump's at 235. I'm of the opinion, and I want you to kind of take us behind the scene about how some of these decisions, you don't make this call, but obviously it's important in your world. So if Trump were to pick someone like a Brian Kemp and put Georgia back in the Republican Party's category, he goes from 230 to 235 because of the, the reallocation of votes. and that gets him to 251. Drew, if Kemp's on the ticket, or if Kemp's involved in some active way, doesn't that give us a much better choice to win in Georgia, or much better chance to win in Georgia? And you can go deploy resources and assets in Pennsylvania, Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan. The South is on lockdown. Am I off base there?
No, you're not. I mean, there are two different ways that people typically look at this. One is, who in terms of a vice presidential pick can help me expand things demographically. Think, women, think African Americans, think, Hispanics, whatever that might be. Sometimes, region, but I don't think regional picks are as big of a thing as it used to be. But state picks, though. So you're right on that. Like you said, another perfect example would be, say, Virginia. You got Governor Youngkin in Virginia who flipped that state from blue to red, a year and a half ago. He was having has great numbers there in Virginia in terms of job approval and so forth. I mean, if you put Virginia back on the Republican side again, that's another big play. So no, you're not off base in that. And those things will be, I'm sure, the consideration of whoever the nominee is. And sometimes they think in terms of who would complement the nominee the most in terms of style. So it's an ongoing debate that's been going on for a long time, and it really comes down to the nominee, where they're most comfortable, what they need the most, and what their options are. And I think right now, one thing that I can say for sure is, as Republicans, for all those different angles, we've got a lot of options. You just mentioned one, and Youngkin would be another one. Tim Scott, when you think about the African Americans, Governor Haley, when you think about females, Governor Kim Reynolds up in Iowa, when you think about females. It just depends. But it's definitely part of the consideration.
Okay. Tell me as much of the secret plan as you want to tell me. Where are you most concerned in playing defense? I mean, is it North Carolina? Is it? I mean, give me the state or two that Trump carried. The Republicans historically have won, but you see trending in a more difficult way.
Well, in terms of trending, I can't really say that I think there's a problem there. I mean, obviously North Carolina was close. We want to make sure we keep North Carolina. Georgia was close. We need to get Georgia back across the line. So, in a way, essentially, we're playing defense here in Georgia. I mean, we didn't take Georgia last time,
but we should win Georgia. Is that fair? We should win Georgia.
Right. Well, again, they're not, 4 years ago, they weren't playing with a Joe Biden has the poll numbers that he does today and the record to go along with it. So we should win Georgia. The places where regionally speaking, where we need to be thinking about, in my opinion, is the Midwest. You think about, and plus places like Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and then, around the Great Lakes. And then think about Arizona and Nevada. Even New Hampshire comes into play there. New Hampshire's one we can pick off. That's just 4 electoral votes, but hey, 4 electoral votes matters when the calculation gets this tight. So, there are opportunities out there. And here's one thing I'll point out, by the way. In the election last year, 2022, the total number of votes that got cast for Republican members of Congress versus Democrat members of Congress. Republicans were 4 million votes more than Democrats in 2022. And if you apportion those votes on a state-by-state basis, if you were imagining that were the Electoral College, we would have won the Electoral College. So clearly we've got the mechanics, what we need on the ground to get the votes out. But, again, every campaign stands on its own and has different candidates and a different, rhythm to it and so forth. But we've got the raw material there. But we just got to come back and bring it back to the table this time. As you put it earlier, bring the party together once this nomination contest is over.
Last question. We don't control this at all, but is there a preference? Would we rather run against a diminished Joe Biden, or would we rather run against a non-incumbent? I'm thinking about the governor of California. I'm thinking about just whomever else is out there. Gavin Newsom or whomever else is out there. I mean, is that, in other words, is there, obviously there's scenario A and scenario B, and I would imagine scenario C. Do we game plan as a party for the likelihood or not that something happens to Joe Biden and we're running against someone else?
I mean, it's devil you know versus devil you don't know, or at least that you haven't ran against, and in the mechanics of how that operation works. I'm happy for us to run against Joe Biden, a diminished Joe Biden with a success record, quote unquote, that he's got. But look, I'd love to have them try to sell California to the rest of the country too, in the form of Gavin Newsom. it'll just be different, and our targets will be different because of the campaign. It's a lot more difficult question to answer than, say, is Van Halen better than Van Hagar? So,
and that's an important.
Whoever it is there in your office that thinks that Van Hagar is better, you need to tie him to the chair and make him listen to Ice Cream Man on repeat for about an hour, and then bring him back out and see what he says.
Very well explained, Drew. Thank you for your time, and I mean that sincerely. But listen, you're going to have to agree one of these days to come in the studio and sit down with us, because I want to do a kind of a face-to-face live podcast. We'll incorporate some podcasting with that. I just think you offer so much to our listeners, and I've tried to encourage our listeners to understand, and I'm talking to the Trump voter in particular, and I make no bones about this. I think the Trump voter has a lot to offer this party, but this party doesn't belong to Donald Trump. It belongs to however many millions of people in America who ascribe to the notions and proclivities of our party, and we've got to get past this. It's got to be either or. I mean, it can be a little of both.
That's right.
Thank you, Drew. Appreciate it.
A little bit rock and roll.
There you go. Barbara Mandrella.
That was Donnie and Marie.
Donnie and Marie.
Right.
Oh, my God. Let's don't bring Donnie and Marie into this. Yeah. Thank you, Drew. Appreciate it, my man. Yeah, let's not bring
I can't believe you said that, and I can't believe I knew that.
Yeah. I can believe you knew it. Dancing Dave knows everything about those sorts of Anyway. Hey, let's shift gears. And one of our Thursday features.
Anyway,
I just think it's interesting to have a state party chair and someone. And I'll go on the record. I mean, I believe this to be true. I don't know. I mean, I'm not an insider in that world. But I think that if the Republicans are successful in 2024, the national chairman of the Republican Party will be Drew McKissick. I mean, to the victor go the spoils. And I don't think Rona has an interest in running again. Now, in all honesty, I think Drew would agree to this. If the Republicans lose in 24, you throw all the bums out. I mean, that's just the nature of the business. And the party will turn the page from Trump to another, America Firster. I have no idea who that is, who that will be. Rev thinks DeSantis should have waited and been the heir apparent to the America First movement. I have no idea how that sorts itself out. But I do believe that if the Republicans win, Drew McKissick will be national chairman of the Republican Party. If they don't lose, throw the bums out, and he'll be one of the bums. Whether he is or not, he'll be one of the perceived bums. Want to thank our sponsors. Carolina Bank serves communities throughout northeastern South Carolina, offering a wide range of services to meet every personal or business need, from straightforward accounts to complex finances. They're prepared to help you reach your financial goals. Carolina Bank, banking on tradition since 1936. Member FDIC. Pepsi of Florence represent the entire product line of PepsiCo, one of the world's leading food and beverage companies. Pepsi of Florence also serve brands from other great companies such as Dr. Pepper, Canada Dry, Lipton Tea, Gatorade, and various regional brands. Micky Finn's largest South Carolina liquor wholesaler, serving every county in the state, largest bourbon selection statewide. They ship wines to 43 states, opening soon a new beverage warehouse across from Buc-ee's on I-95 in Florence. They support USC athletics, including Williams-Brice and Colonial Life Arena. Marlboro PD Electric Co-op. If you're in big business and looking for an industrial park in the South to build your new plant, consider Marlboro PD Electric Co-op's new PD Commerce Center. An industrial park located at the I-95 exit in Florence, South Carolina. Check it out at MPDC Co-op or PDEC.com.